So let's jump into our Roto World Player news. For all that news, you can go to NBCSports.com. Bucs Saints. The story of this game, as Jay alluded to, Matthew, Syracuse legend Sean Tucker.
That's right, bursting onto the scene, kind of like the hawk to a girl, just all of a sudden enjoying his 15 minutes of fame. Sean Tucker, this is such a great story, truly a Syracuse legend. By the way, if they'd given him the ball more in the second half, we would have beaten Clemson, but that's another story. Don't get me started on Sean Tucker. I don't know why we went away from him. We absolutely would have, by the way. That would have been a huge upset for the program. There's a reason why that coach is no longer there. Here's what I will say about Sean Tucker. This is somebody kind of we talked about in the pre-draft process that should have been probably a day 2 pick.
Yeah.
You know, maybe he goes in round 3, or maybe round 4 at the latest. But because there was this heart condition, this pre-existing heart condition that didn't allow him to compete at the combine, he ends up being an undrafted free agent, signs with Tampa Bay, but there's never been a question about the kid's talent.
No, not at all. I mean, he's stuck around on this roster now, waited for his opportunity. He's an explosive playmaker, as we saw. He can make you miss. He can break tackles. He can catch the ball, which was one of my favorite things about him as a prospect, and he just had to wait for opportunity. And Jay, we saw him absolutely take off in this offense. He only had 14 carries and 3 catches, but made the most of them. And Matthew, that's what it was like at Syracuse for Sean Tucker. When he got the ball, it was kind of a look-out feeling because of the explosive play rate.
And it's why we lost to Clemson. Don't get me started.
Yeah. Bucky Irving still played 64% of the snaps. Look, Bucky Irving had a good day.
He had a good day
overall, which is it's going to feel a little bit lukewarm because he didn't have Sean Tucker's day, but he still had a great day overall. I mean, is Rachaad White going to play when he comes back, whenever that is? Because Tucker and Irving both look great. And I think the broader story, too, about just this game and these performances is the Bucs. The Bucs just have an elite offense. They have the 6th-ranked offense by EPA. I think just the kind of more perhaps modern play calling with Dave Canales and his run-first, run-pass scheme no longer there. I mean, this team is super explosive at the moment. Baker is playing at a really high level as well, which we'll get to.
It's unbelievable. And, so I did the Football Night in America pod last night after Sunday Night Football, and so we did these kind of one-word answers. And so I was asked, give me one word about the Buccaneers' 50-point total against the Saints and their victory, and my word was resilient. I mean, like in terms of we're resilient because first off, the community of Tampa Bay, all of honestly the west coast of Florida, but specifically around Tampa Bay, what the entire family and that team and organization had to go through, going to New Orleans earlier in the week and practicing. They were lucky to get their families out because there's a lot of people left in Tampa Bay that are not so lucky. And so, and then just when it comes to the game itself. Baker throws a couple of bad picks. All of a sudden they're in a dogfight with a team that they thought, well, hey, we're against a backup quarterback, rookie quarterback, and unfortunately the Saints lose Cris early as well. And so, but they come back, and not only do they win this game, but they just destroy them. I mean, and this is a good Saints defense. This is a good Saints team, and Baker Mayfield is playing. Friend of the podcast, by the way, Baker Mayfield. I'm surprised we haven't seen Jay and a picture of Baker with half of my face in it as well. I'm sure that exists.
There's a lot of time left in the week.
Well, he did trade him, so it's kind of hard to pull off now.
Yeah, but Jay doesn't care.
That's right. He has no shame.
No shame at all. His social media followers don't understand that you got rid of Baker Mayfield. You traded it to Connor. Once again, it's Connor's day. It's Connor's week. But I feel like I said this to producer Damien. Like I was playing producer Damien in our Dynasty League. We're in a Dynasty League together, and I am in the lucky spot of having it's a Superflex League. I have Kyler Murray, Jared Goff, and Baker Mayfield as my quarterbacks. And this week, I'll just be honest, I benched Baker because I thought Goff against Dallas, that's going to be a shootout, and Kyler's Kyler, and obviously that was the mistake. I still ended up beating producer Damien. Don't worry, everyone. I still managed to crush him like a grape. But I said to Damien, I said, I need a draft day like Post-it note that I just need to put on my hand, Baker Mayfield no matter what.
Well, on Slap Them Like a Grape, we started the season with 4 legitimate starting quarterbacks. Joe Burrow, Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold, Justin Fields. I traded Baker to Connor for Cooper Kupp. I traded Sam Darnold to Connor as well for Russell Wilson and J.K. Dobbins. And now I'm like one Joe Burrow wrist injury away from having no good quarterbacks. So
That's right.
I've gone from 4 great quarterbacks to potentially 1.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure Fields, I mean, we'll talk about
that
Fields,
game
but,
in a second.
He was a fine. But, it can change quickly with the quarterbacks. But, no, I agree with everything that you said, Matthew. And this Bucs team, we forget that, like, last year, going into last season, I believe they were the favorite to have the worst record in football last season. Yeah. And then they win the division. They're 4-2 now. They have this blockbuster primetime primetime game against the Ravens on Monday Night Football, where they go to 5-2, have a better record than Baltimore, and really put themselves in position to get a top 2 seed. So it's a great story overall. Very happy for Baker Mayfield. We appreciate anyone who comes on the show, but Baker, I thought he was really candid. He was really great to speak to, and I'm really happy that he's doing well.
He's an awesome guy. If you've ever met him, I've interviewed him twice. He is an easy guy to root for. There's not a surprise to me that the Buccaneers have rallied around him and that he's a true leader. He's, again, playing at elite level. Chris Godwin, we haven't even gotten to him. George the Greek just absolutely trying to slap me around like a grape with Chris Godwin in the League of Assholes. Like I'm hanging on by a thread there. We'll talk about that in a second. But Godwin, has now scored in 4 of his 6 games so far this year. He's got a 28% target share this season. It's weird. Godwin, in a game in which Mike Evans didn't do anything, but just they were able to run the ball so much, it's super weird. They put up 50, and Mike Evans does nothing for, of course, my Live at Noon at the Cock, whereas George the Greek's Chris Godwin, just unbelievable year for him. Moving into the slot has done wonders for him. Moving back into the slot, I should say. On the season, he's the wide receiver 3 in points per game. He's had 3 different games with over 20 or more fantasy points. He broke the slate, as it were, and you see this tweet from Next Gen Stats.
Yeah, Chris Godwin gained 105 of his 125 receiving yards after contact across 11 receptions. So Godwin, just as we showed the play before, the big play, and obviously a lot of the yards after contact was the short out he caught, and he ran through 3 different players. We got to hear from Godwin after the game on that exact play and why he's been so good with the ball in his hands this year. Take a listen.
We had a shot called downfield that they had covered up. They got me the ball in a good, and a good timing. Make the cut back on, the backer flowing out. And then from there, I'm just trying to get as much yards as I can. To end up being perfect timing, breaking the 2 tackles, and I see nobody in front of me. I'm like, I can't get caught. That's the only thing going through my mind. And it was a pretty exhilarating play. It felt really good, especially at that moment in the game. Like it was a big moment for us. So that's the biggest thing for me is trying to make some big plays when we really need them.
Yeah, Jay. I mean, you hear him is that when his number's called, and the thing is in this offense, it's so narrow with him and Evans, with Baker Mayfield. He's been taking advantage of it, and he's just healthy this year. Yeah,
he is. He looks super explosive. He's younger than you realize as well, Chris Godwin. He feels like he's been a guy who's been around a decade, but he's still in his late 20s. I think the thing with this game, to me, this was a Liam Cohen game. Here's the story here, because Baker Mayfield, I believe on passes that went over 10 yards in the air, Baker was 1 for 10 with 2 interceptions. And they scored 51 points, which just shows the amount of yak that is coming out of this scheme and just the level that Godwin is playing at in particular. This is an offense just firing on all cylinders at the moment.
You see it there on your screen, the top fantasy performers of Week 6 as we head into Monday Night Football. Chris Godwin at 1, Sean Tucker at 2, Baker Mayfield at 5. 3 of the top 5 fantasy point scorers in Week 6 as we head into Monday Night Football are from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And here's the weird thing. We'll get more into this tomorrow. But I guess you have to pick up Sean Tucker, but
That's
I'm not.
Weird, right?
But it's weird because, again, first off, their upcoming schedule is not easy. Home to Baltimore, home to Atlanta, at Kansas City, home to San Francisco. Only the Falcons do you feel good about being able to run the ball against, right? I mean, the Chiefs have a pretty good run defense. The Niners do. Obviously, Baltimore, that's a real strength for them. And also, just because we all are like, whoa, Sean Tucker, doesn't mean that Liam Cohen, that Todd Bowles are going to be like, hey, Rachaad White, you suddenly lost your job. Yep. Probably the best case scenario is it's now a 3-headed monster, right? That Sean Tucker has earned some playing time off this. Yeah. But there's a scenario where Rachaad White has just been Wally pipped, as it were, and it's gonna be Tucker and Irving, who to the eye test look like the best 2 running backs on the Buccaneers, and I don't think it's particularly close. But it's also like, Todd Bowles is an old school guy, and Rachaad White was the veteran and led them last year, and Rachaad White's a young guy. He's a second year, right? A second or third year player.
Yeah,
third year player. So I mean, it's sort of weird to know, like there's a chance that Sean Tucker goes back to getting 0 snaps next week if Rachaad White is healthy.
The other issue too is just the Bucs. They throw the ball a ton. They're top 3 in the NFL in pass rate over expected. So that's just another thing that works against Sean Tucker.
Yeah, I mean, it has to be picked up, but I wouldn't blow a ton of fat. I don't know. Unless we were to find out Rachaad White's injury is more serious than we think. I don't know. Well, it's a great day. It's a great day. Go Cuse. And as you can imagine, the entire city of Tampa Bay, led by Baker Mayfield and the Buccaneers, drinks for free. Good for you guys. Thrilled for you guys. Absolutely.
A massive, massive win for Tampa Bay.
Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBCSports.com and RotorWorld.com, and I want to thank you so much for watching whatever it is you just watched, or if nothing else, being too lazy to click out of the autoplay after this video started, after whatever it is you actually wanted to watch finished. But now that you're here, I'd like to take a moment here to ask you respectfully now, okay? I'm asking you respectfully to subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel. You'll get the latest Roto-World fantasy news headlines, all sorts of great shows, including my own Fantasy Football Happy Hour. So go subscribe now. Again, I'm asking respectfully.